Before we get started in Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Good afternoon, dear Venerable Abbot, dear Sangha. So today we're on chapter 13, the Lotus Sutra, titled Encouraging Devotion, or Encouragement to Uphold. So historically, this chapter is actually a later addition into the sutra. This chapter and the following chapter are later additions to the sutra. And per my research, the chapters were added a couple decades after the full chapter was created, sutra was created, to help emphasize the power of the Lotus Sutra. So encouraging devotion, this chapter is essentially praising the qualities of the Lotus Sutra and praising the qualities of those that uphold or practice the Lotus Sutra. So in many of the chapters of the Lotus Sutra, we'll see the verbiage of those that read, recite, uphold, explain, and write the sutra, and the benefits that they receive from doing so. And so in this chapter, the previous chapter, the Devadatta chapter 12, that's when the Buddha essentially said, everyone's able to attain Buddhahood, regardless of who or what you are and your age or gender, etc., etc. And so in this chapter, it's emphasized even more. And part of this chapter is providing the prediction of Buddhahood to the Buddha's aunt and stepmother. No, not stepmother. Foster mother? And his late wife, Yasodhara. Not late wife, his ex-wife, I suppose. And so during the discussion that the Buddha was giving, that everyone in the assembly, everyone in the Sangha, everyone that was there, right? And so in previous chapters it was mentioned that there were 6,000 monks and 8,000 bodhisattvas and 3,000 lay people, that they're all capable and all will attain Buddhahood in the future. And so in this chapter, Mahaprajapati, the cousin, the Buddha's aunt, was kind of mumbling to herself, and she was like, he's mentioning all these other people's names, but he failed to mention my name. And so the Buddha, having supernatural powers, was able to kind of know the thoughts of people, knew the thought that she was having. And so he spoke up and said, Bhikshuni Mahaprajapati, are you concerned that you alone, your name alone was not mentioned in the prediction of Buddhahood? And so he essentially told her, don't worry about it, you will become a Buddha in the future. And then after he predicted her Buddhahood in the future, he also predicted his ex-wife's Buddhahood, Yasodhara. And after those predictions, then the assembly of bodhisattvas, well, before that, the Buddha encouraged everyone to uphold, read, and recite, and propagate the Lotus Sutra. But then he also wished, or kind of asked the assembly of bodhisattvas, who among you are able to make a vow that in the future, when I enter parinirvana, or in future ages when the Dharma is in its evil age, which is technically the age that we're in now, where the Dharma is kind of declining, right? And so we asked the assembly, who among you are able to make a vow to uphold, read, and recite, and propagate, and continue teaching this Dharma, the Dharma of the Lotus Sutra? And so all the bodhisattvas in the assembly made vow that when the Buddha passes, that they will continue on propagating the Lotus Sutra. And so within these vows that the bodhisattvas were making, there were also specific qualities that people, lay people, and even monastics in this later age of the Dharma are going to have. And so the bodhisattvas were to proclaim that people lacking wisdom may revile us with malicious words or attack us with knives and stabs, yet we shall endure these wrongs. So essentially, the Buddha was predicting that in the later age, in the time of the Dharma's decline, there still will be monks and nuns and lay people who are devout to the practice, but there will also be people, monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen, who are practicing wrong livelihood, wrong action, wrong thinking, in the sense that there will be people who will proclaim that they have attained what they have not attained, that will proclaim that they have ascended when they have not ascended, people who will proclaim that they know more than they do, and they don't. And so the part of this vow, part of this recognition of the energy and the power that the Lotus Sutra has, the bodhisattvas that made the vow say, well, us and all our assemblies and all our disciples in the future will attempt to find these people with malicious intent or wrong view and wrong livelihood and correct their actions. And so part of our practice of being aspirational bodhisattvas is to live the life of a bodhisattva and what a bodhisattva would do in order to protect, propagate, read, and recite, and copy the Lotus Sutra. And so part of our practice of being bodhisattvas is to perfect endurance, perfect patience, right? Last week we mentioned that part of the practice is perfecting the 6 perfections, the 6 padamitas, right? And one of them is vigor, energy. It is the energy, it's the vigor, the discipline that we need to apply to our practice in order to propagate it correctly and practice it correctly. And so we handle, as bodhisattvas or potential bodhisattvas, we handle scolding, right? And we don't allow people's scolding of us to affect us. Instead, the Buddha explains that we should just ignore anyone who's trying to scold us or anyone who's trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? That too. What's the other word? Trying to offend you or call you out or call you names, that we should just endure that without any response, right? So if someone is scolding you, they are only truly scolding you if you react to it. Then it becomes scolding. But if someone's scolding you and you're unresponsive, you're not reacting, then it's not really scolding, right? There's a famous story of the Buddha when someone was arguing with him and yelling at him and telling him that you're not a real teacher, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 right? And she was very angry. And so the Buddha just calmly said, ma'am, if you were to give me a gift and I did not accept it, to whom does the gift belong to? She's like, to me. It was like, well, obviously. So then your scolding, your anger toward me, I don't accept it. So it's just going to go back to you. Right? Someone open the door, please. The door. And so likewise, when someone is calling us out or defaming us or, whatever it may be, we should just smile and let go, right? Let it be. One fun way to ignore scolding or someone calling us out or defiling us is just to pretend you don't understand what they're saying. Pretend they speak a language you don't understand. Should be in English, but just pretend they're talking Chinese or Japanese or something. Like, I don't understand what you're saying, so why get angry about it, right? Likewise, we should also endure physical attacks, right? If we take the Bodhisattva vows, for instance, part of those vows is to ignore to not reciprocate physical attack, right? So if your life is in danger or someone else's life is in danger, part of that endurance is to essentially help them as much as you can, whether even if it comes to the point of sacrifice, right? You're sacrificing your life for someone else. But we still do not react we do not react to physical attack with physical attacks, right? That's part of being a bodhisattva. Being a bodhisattva is not easy, right? But if you're reacting to physical attacks, someone's hitting and you're trying to hit back, then what kind of bodhisattva are you? The bodhisattva of great physical pain? No, there's no such thing, right? Bodhisattva of boxing? Bodhisattva of kung fu? No. So, bodhisattvas have to yield to what others cannot yield to. And we have to endure what others cannot endure. We have to take what others cannot take. And that's part of our practice. And it's part of perfecting the 6 perfections. Right? It's part of endurance. It's part of vigor. It's part of patience. Patience is one of I said this last week, the most difficult perfection for me is patience. Patience with myself mostly. Patience with the world. Sometimes when I'm observing the world, I become very sad, right? I become deeply sad for the world, for the other people, and for the suffering that they go through that is unnecessary. The majority of our suffering is caused by ourselves. Likewise, if someone's scolding you, the only reason you're going to get hurt about it or allow it to affect you is because you've reacted to it. You've allowed yourself to take it personally. I say this all the time. If someone is trying to offend me, I encourage it. I love being offended. Because it's such a good practice. It's such a good teacher, right? I have the power of being unoffendable. That's my one takeaway of my last 20 years of practice. If someone's trying to call me names or call me out or do this or do that, I welcome it. Do it. Go for it. Do your worst. Because if I can uphold and accept and endure what you are giving me and you think it's terrible, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy? Who's winning? Who's losing? Surely not me, hopefully. But that's part of our practice, is to endure. And that's the kind of moral of the story is, and part of the stories is in the future, when the Bodhisattva is saying that there are going to be practitioners who defile or who discourage the teaching of the Dharma, who defile monks and nuns and laymen and laywomen that practice the Dharma, saying that you're practicing the wrong way, you're not practicing the correct way, you're practicing a false Dharma, or a made-up Dharma, or an old Dharma, whatever it may be, right? And as a practitioner, because you're practicing, which should mean that you're putting your teachings, you're putting your studies into practice, right? Meaning that when you practice, when you meditate, for instance, right? Meditation is the easiest example I can think of right now. If you're meditating, and you meditate long enough, correctly, with correct practice, with correct technique, with correct timing and place, and etc., you will succeed. But if you don't give yourself the time to practice, if you don't give yourself enough time to practice, and without correct guidance and motivation, others, you can come to temple every single week, multiple days a week, every single day if you want to. That doesn't make you a better Buddhist than someone that comes once a year. The act of just coming to temple, the act of just listening to the Dharma talk, the act of just chanting and just kind of going with the flow is not practice. That becomes blind faith, becomes blind devotion. What are you doing? You're reading the sutra, but what are you doing about it? Are you following the instructions of the sutra? Are you truly reading, reciting, upholding, propagating the sutra? Or any sutra, any dharma? What are you doing? And so when we practice, if you practice long enough, then the endurance becomes very natural. You're able to endure people talking smack about you, people who don't agree with your religious beliefs, people who don't agree with your practices, people that don't agree with your lifestyle, or your job, or your work, or your relationships, whatever it may be. Some of them may be correct, may bring up a valid, logical reason, but the only person that can say you are correct or you are wrong is yourself. And so if someone is saying that practicing Buddhism is not good for you, or practicing Dharma is not good for you, it's not the right religion or whatever it may be, that person becomes a teacher, and you become their student. And now your superpower in that moment is endurance. Are you enduring what they're saying? Are you able to endure what others cannot endure? Are you able to yield what others cannot yield to? Are you able to do what others cannot do? Every single person that's in this room right now is doing 1,000 times more than someone who is not here. The Buddha mentions that there are 84,000 Dharma doors, meaning there's 84,000 ways of practice. And so by being here, by coming to the temple, by listening to the Dharma talk, by chanting, by observing the precepts, if you've taken precepts, by, what else do we do? By helping attend the temple. Those are 5 Dharma gates, Dharma doors out of the 84,000. So there's so many ways to practice. There's no one right way. And so someone that is scolding you or calling you out or calling you names or whatever it may be, they're providing you a Dharma door. It may not be very Buddhist. It may not be the most kind or compassionate thing that they say, but it is still a Dharma door. Meaning that you can either open that door and use the practice that's behind the doors, or keep it locked and pretend it never happened. Ignorance, okay, not ignorance, ignorance is just as bad as not doing anything. Right? Because we have ignorance, which is not knowing, right? But then we have ignorance, which means you're ignoring what you should be doing. You're trying to take the easy way out. There's nothing easy about being a bodhisattva. There's nothing easy about being a Buddhist, really. Right? Buddhism is so comprehensive, and it's so, there's a lot. It's not an easy thing to be able to just read about and learn and say, yeah, I know this information. You can have a lot of knowledge in Buddhism. You can know so much, right? You can recite an entire sutra for me. You can recite every single fundamental teaching for me. You can recite every single list I throw your way. But just because you know something It doesn't make you actually intelligent. It doesn't make you wise. I'm sorry. It makes you intelligent, but it doesn't make you wise, right? Because there's a difference between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence is dependent on circumstances, depending on time and place, and what you know, and who you know, and what you know. Whereas wisdom is something that can come from intelligence, but it is wisdom that is attained. It's something that is realized through the practice. It's a rare occurrence, right? Where if you're reading the sutra or you're reading a teaching and you have a pretty sustained aha moment, right? Like a minute, second of enlightenment, right? It can happen, but it's a rare thing because reading something is different from doing something. If you read about how to play tennis, right? You know all the keywords, you know what this means, you know what that means, you know the method of serving, you know the method of, you know, the rules and regulations. But until you actually go and play tennis, you have no idea what you're actually doing. You can sit there and like, yeah, this means serving, and that, if it goes out the lines, it's an out, or whatever it is. But that doesn't mean you're a professional tennis player. Just because you read, you know every single little piece about tennis does not make you a professional tennis player. Likewise, reading every single Dharma you put your eyes on does not make you a Dharma master, or a Dharma teacher, or a practitioner. You have to physically do the practice. You have to physically, mentally, psychologically, emotionally put everything into it in order to see and create change. And for those that have had those aha moments, right, and decide to take it further, whether it's by taking precepts or becoming a monk, right? I'm not a monk because I just woke up this one day and be like, you know what, I think I want to monk out today, just for the hell of it. No. Being a monk is extremely difficult. There's so many times I just want to just close my eyes and not open them again. It's a difficult thing to do. But I did it because there was a clear aha moment that led me here, that led me to do what I do, that led me to take the vows that I've taken. And so I've seen what wisdom can, what wisdom can penetrate. And I hope everyone that is here or has taken vows had the same experience. Otherwise, why are you here? Why did you take precepts? Why did you take any vows? Why are you practicing? For what reason? There has to be a reason. There has to be an intention of your practice. What is the intention that you have? What is the outcome? What is the goal that you're trying to achieve? My clock is still missing. I keep looking at this empty spot. Okay. One of the things that we can do, so back to, so off topic, back to the chapter. So in this chapter and many other chapters, we will see constantly the phrase for those that read, recite, and write out and propagate the Lotus Sutra. So writing out sutras is actually a very common thing to do at least in Chinese Buddhism, especially writing out the Heart Sutra. One of the things I did when I first ordained was write out the Lotus Sutra. The Lotus Sutra was my first sutra that I wrote out. It took way longer than I thought it would. It literally took me like a whole year. I think like a year and a half. But the reason why we write it, right, and it's specific where it says read, recite, and teach the Dharma. Because when you read something, again, you can superficially understand it. But when you write something out, so not only are you repeating what you've read, but you're also making a connection to what you're writing out. You're making a connection with the sutra or whatever, with the chapter, whatever it may be. And when you make a connection, that means that you read something and something kind of popped up in your mind where you felt something similar, whether it's something that whether it's something that you've read, and you're like, oh yeah, I've had a similar experience, or I've had an experience where people were scolding and throwing rocks and trying to stab me with knives and stabs and take life, whatever it may be. But there's a connection that potentially, hopefully, will happen that makes you more grateful for the sutra, right? And so when you read it, and then you've written it out, and then you chant what you've read and written, and then you teach what you've read, written, and chanted, that makes the knowledge that you have of the sutra so much stronger versus just reading it once or twice and then attempting to teach about it, right? I've already said this many times before in the past, where I will not teach you something that I have not fully mastered or attained myself, including any sutra or discourse or practice. And so you'll see me always with notebooks. This is not my notebook, but I always have notebooks, right? Because I write out and create notes and realizations of whatever I'm reading or practicing or studying. And so the Lotus Sutra, even though I've not completed my commentary on it, but I definitely have much more of an understanding and connection and gratefulness for it because I've read it and written it out and chanted it several hundred times. And you do the same thing with any other sutra. It doesn't have to be the Lotus Sutra, but any sutra you have a connection with. So I've done the same thing with the Amitabha Sutra, with the Diamond Sutra, the Heart Sutra, the Dhammapada. Those are my main sutras. So those are the ones that I can recall right now. But never mind. I was going to tell a story, but it's just going to prolong my talk. The point is the sutra is continuously encouraging you to practice, because with practice is the only way you're going to be able to attain enlightenment and Buddhahood, right? You have to practice. I cannot emphasize enough that you have to do what you read and you study. If you come to my meditation classes, you only meditate during the class, and you haven't meditated for the next 2 weeks until we meet again, I can't say that you're a meditator, nor can you say I'm a meditator. You can only come to temple once a week, put on a robe and chant along and do your thing. That doesn't make you a Buddhist either. What makes a professional, what makes a doctor a doctor? How are they a doctor? Why are they a doctor? What was their circumstances? What were their journey into being able to have the title doctor? Did they too just wake up one day and be like, I'm going to become a doctor today, I'm going to cut someone open and call it a day? Exactly. How many there's some specialties have to practice for decades before they can call themselves whatever specialty they're in, right? You have to go to college, and then you go to med school, and then you do your internship, and then you do your residency, and then depending on your specialty, you do more residency stuff, right? And so they're putting the work in order to call themselves a doctor. Right, there's always continuing education, right? Even our abbot, who's a medical doctor, always goes to conferences, always does, what is it called? CMEs. I don't know, what does CME stand for? Continuing education, something? Yes, continuing medical education. There we go. He does that all the time. I know because I purchased the packet for him. And so there's always work to make yourself better. So he's always doing something to make himself a better doctor. He's constantly learning. He's constantly applying what he's learning to his practice. Likewise, we have to do the same thing. We have to put our work into practice. There's no exception. Otherwise, you're just, what are you doing? Do you not want to become a Buddha? Do you not want to become enlightened? Do you not want to be able to help other people? Right? Okay, I'm gonna stop talking. This is actually a pretty short chapter, but it is important because it reemphasizes the ability that anybody can become a Buddha. And then it also emphasizes that as bodhisattvas on the way to Buddhahood, we have to apply and perfect those 6 perfections, the paramittas. Does anybody remember what the 6 paramittas are? Or you wrote them out last week. That's immeasurable. It's 1. It's 2. What? What is he saying? Obedience. I heard bees. I'm like, what does bees have to do anything? No. Well, no. Discipline. Patience. Did you? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Oh yeah, you did, sorry. Vigor or energy. Morality, which you said, with precepts. Concentration or meditation. And wisdom. Those 6 perfections. And so they're called perfections because they're not just something that you can say, oh yeah, I have patience. I open the door for people. I hold the door open. I let people pass on the street or on the road. That's not the kind of patience you need to perfect. That's baby patience. That's kindergarten level patience. The kind of patience that you need as a bodhisattva to perfect is endurance kind of a patience. Enduring the people that lack wisdom, that may revile us with malicious words or attack us with knives and staffs. That's the kind of endurance or patience we need. But also patience with yourself. I think it's even, we mentioned it yesterday in meditation or a couple of weeks ago, that one of the things that becomes difficult, actually it was in the Buddhism 101 class, it was a question someone asked. They wanted to know how can they gauge where they're at in their practice? How can they gauge how enlightened or unenlightened they are? Right? It's a valid question. I had a couple parts of that answer. Part 1 is, well, on your own you can't. You cannot. What you need is a good spiritual advisor, according to the Buddha, meaning a teacher, either a monk or nun or a highly realized Dharma master or Dharma teacher. And then 2, second part of the answer was, well, I can test you. I can give you a pop quiz. I can kind of gauge how much knowledge you know and how much correct knowledge you know. Sometimes, well, not sometimes, usually when someone wants to ordain as a monk or nun, right, there's a legit interview process. And after you get some of the basics out of the way, there's 1 to 3 questions that will be asked to the person, right? And I'm not going to tell you what those questions are because that would be cheating. But there's 1 to 3 questions, depending on the previous discussion, right? I can ask you 1, 2, or 3 questions. These questions don't have wrong answers. They do have right answers. I know that doesn't make sense, but there's not a wrong answer, but there are several right answers. And so depending on how the answer is given, right, it doesn't necessarily have to be correct. And if it's a question about a list, for instance, right, the answer doesn't have to say this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5. But it's how you answer the question. Okay? So likewise, when my students, before they take precepts, I give them a pop quiz. I'm quizzing you on your knowledge of Buddhism and your knowledge of the Dharma for a couple of reasons. 1, so I know how much you know and how much I need to help teach you. And 2, it kind of gives me an epiphany of what to name you. Because as a preceptor, as a teacher, I give them Buddhist names. But my list of, 20 questions was on the list? 20 questions, right? Usually. I'm not looking for right answers. I just want to know how you're answering this. If it's at least mildly close to the correct answer, or you're on the right path, you just don't know the full answer, I will accept that as a correct answer. There are wrong answers in this case because it's a legit test. I don't care. I don't count the wrong answers. I only count of the answers that you do answer. I'd rather you put a wrong answer that's at least close enough to a blank answer. What was my point? I lost my thought process. But anyway, practice. I can't emphasize that enough. Just do what you need to do. And practice doesn't mean trying to spend 3, 4, 5 hours a day meditating or chanting or reading. No. But it's putting what you've read into practice. So if you're learning about the Four Noble Truths, or the Eightfold Path, or the 6 Perfections, or the 4 Immeasurables, right? Put what you know, how to practice them into your life. Utilize them. The first perfection is generosity, dana. And this is true generosity. Not generosity like, oh, here's a cup of water, I thought you were thirsty. Sure, that's generous, but that's not true generosity. It's not the kind of generosity we're looking for, or you should be doing. This is an easy dana. Why? Because it's not yours. If whoever put this water here, I don't know who put this water here. Did you put the water here? So if Linda put the water here, right? She's being generous. She's offering her teacher a refreshment. But it's an easy giveaway for her because it's not her water that she's giving. It would be more generous for her if she brought water from her own house and gave it to me. Not that there's any difference. You don't have to. I mean, that's just an exaggerated example. But it is being able to give what you have without any thought about it, right? And so one way that I teach those that, what's a nice word? To those that cling to material possessions, for instance, right? And we cling to a lot of our material possessions. Your house, your car, your clothes, your phone, right? All these things, your jewelry, things that have been passed down through generations, things that are from your great thousand great grandparents. If you're able to give these things up without the hesitancy of, oh, I don't really want to give this to you, or without the expectation of a return, then that is true generosity. And the way I tell my students to meditate about this is when you're meditating, visualize yourself in your house. Visualize all the things that you hold sacred. And then imagine someone knocking on your door and asking for one of those things from you. And then you visualize yourself giving it to them freely, without any attachment to it, without any expectation of a return. And you do this with all your other possessions until now you have an empty house. Or at least a minimalistic house. But that's the first step in order to mentally prepare yourself to give things away without a reason of return, expectation of a return. This is true giving. This is true dana, generosity. But how much do we do that? How often do we do that? How often do we do something for others? Even if you do something nice for something and you're expecting just a thank you, that's not true generosity. You just ruined it. Don't even expect a thank you. Don't expect any return. Don't even expect acknowledgement. If you do, that means your ego is just trying to counteract that. How dare they not say thank you? I did something nice for them. Rude. A-holes. How dare they? They don't deserve my kindness. We've all gone through that. So watch yourself. This is why mindfulness is so important in our practice. Mindfulness is something that we have to learn to apply 24/7 to our lives. Because when you're in those moments when you're doing something kind, right, we all have expectations. Don't look at me and lie that you say you don't have any expectations. You have an expectation of a thank you. You have an expectation of you're welcome. You have an expectation of someone doing something nice for you because you've done something nice for them. You have all these expectations of people and places and things. You have expectation of how people should act, how they should live their lives, what they should say, how they need to do things, or how the world needs to be, or how your family needs to be, right? We have all these expectations. These expectations will ruin you. They will ruin you. And if you allow them to affect you because you have attachment to them, you've just lost so many good karma points. So many brownie points just went down the drain. So instead, if we're in a situation where we've opened the door for someone, or we've allowed someone to take our spot in line or something, right? And they say, or don't say thank you, right? Be mindful of how your mind is reacting. Are you expecting a thank you? Because you can recognize that expectation before the action is completed. So if you're in the action of doing something nice, your mind is already thinking of that expectation of what's going to happen next. So if you're mindful enough and you're aware enough of how your mind is working and how it's reacting, then you can seize any expectations before the action is complete. You can seize the expectation of a thank you or any sort of reaction from the other person. And then, just like we're enduring scolding, you don't take it. If someone doesn't say thank you or does say thank you, it is what it is. Why does it matter if someone says thank you or don't? Sure, it's a nice thing, but why does it matter? What's so important about someone saying thank you because you've given them something? What is the difference between them not saying it and them saying it? Exactly. Exactly. It is pure ego. Ego. Pure ego. Our ego, we think we have control over ourselves. We believe we have control over our own mind, but you don't. None of us does. The moment that your mind has that reaction of they should have said thank you or whatever it may be, and you're reacting to anything, either positive or negative or neutral, if there is a reaction, there's ego. So we have to be mindful enough to know what's happening. Why are we reacting the way we're reacting? Why are we so obsessed with people being generous and saying thank you, or doing things for us, or holding the door, or holding the line, or bringing us something? Why is a nice person? Let them not be a nice person. That's not your concern. Anything and anyone outside of yourself is not your concern. For spiritual development, at least. Okay, really, we'll stop talking. Since we have a long chapter to chant. Questions, concerns, emotional outrage. No, emotional outbursts. I don't want to hear any of outrages. Emotional outbursts. Is it a short question? Go for it, Joseph. There cannot be logic in devotion. There's nothing logical about devotion. What is devotion? It is blind faith, is what devotion is. It is blind faith. So, but there are different types and levels of devotion. Don't get me wrong. You can be devoted to your spouse, for instance. You can be devoted to your family. You can be devoted to your friends. You can be devoted to your job, right? This is natural devotion. But from a religious standpoint, devotion, for the most part, in most world religions, means blind faith to whatever God or deity or person that you're praying or worshiping, right? Why even use devotion? What's the point of devotion? Then what's the difference between that and concentration? Is that not the same thing as devotion? Is that not the same thing as devotion then? If your devotion to the Buddha, for instance, is devotion because you're devoting your practice to his qualities, to his characteristics, to his dharma. What's the difference between concentrating on the Buddha and when you're doing the exact same thing? If you concentrate on the Buddha, you're concentrating on his qualities, on his characteristics, on his path to enlightenment. That's why I wouldn't use the word devotion in Buddhism. I would use the word faith, but this is also not faith in the Buddha. This is faith in yourself. So faith is, there's a teaching in Buddhism called the 6 powers. The first power is faith in yourself, is faith. But this is not faith in the Buddha or the Bodhisattvas. This is faith in yourself, that you have faith, that you're capable of following the practices. You have faith in yourself that you're able to follow the aspiration to develop yourself in becoming an enlightened person. Right? The Buddha's not here. The Bodhisattvas are not here. This is a statue made of plastic or cement or bronze or gold or whatever it may be. So if we're here bowing or worshiping the Buddha, he doesn't care about it. He's long gone. We're not here to be worshiping the Buddha. The only reason the statues here exist, the only reason we have statues, is to give you a piece to focus on. And so when you see the Buddha and you see his qualities and you see the beauty and the sereneness of his meditation, it's supposed to help inspire you and encourage you to be the same way, to develop those same qualities, to develop those same concentrations, to develop those same 6 paramittas, or the 37 factors to enlightenment. All these lead to Buddhahood. But we don't have to worship the Buddha. This place can be completely empty, and it would still be a Buddhist temple. We don't need statues. The statues are just tools for you to help you focus, to help you train your mind. But we don't need them. I think we have too many statues, to be honest. I'm okay with just one. We will be getting rid of these 3 once we build a new dining hall in the back, so I'm excited about that because... Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. There is no predestiny in Buddhism. Your life is governed by your own karma, your own volitional actions, right? I can't make you enlightened. I can't make you practice. I can't make you meditate. I can't make you understand the Dharma. I can't make you perfect the 6 perfections. Only you can. I can show you the way. I can give you a blueprint, right? I can give you some instructions. But the same way you go to a doctor and they prescribe a medicine to you, they're just giving you a tool, but it's your own will whether you take or not take the medication. And so the beauty of karma is that it's changeable. You can be born in a terrible place in the world, but you also have the ability to better yourself and get yourself out of it. Which is why, never mind. But yeah, you have the ability to change and to better yourself. It's just because you've right. Karma is essentially collecting points, basically, right? So it's a point system almost, where you do good things, you receive good things. You do bad things, you receive bad things, right? Karma comes in positive, negative, and neutral. So if you do good deeds, you gain good merit. If you do bad deeds, you gain bad merit. And you see this in the world. If you go to school and you're in college, if you study hard enough and you retain the information, you take good notes or whatever, then you're going to be a successful student. If you just go and slack off and not take notes and not pay attention and you fail your test, whose fault is that? Is it the teacher's fault because they didn't make you study? Is it the teacher's fault because they didn't shove the information in your brain? No, it's your fault because you didn't study, you didn't practice, right? And so you have the will and the desire to do things. You need to do them. Yes.
Thank you for so much you've said. It's raising up in my mind. And I wanted to just ask you a question.
Sure.
From personal experience, very maybe relatable. I was at HEB yesterday. Back in the shelf, I couldn't reach it. Couldn't reach what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of trying to figure out, okay, maybe I could stand on something and pull myself up, and I thought gravity was wrong. So the gentleman was passing, and I kind of looked around and I said, will you
Mm-hmm.
So I thanked him. I don't know if he expected it. I think he did. I think it would make it feel good.
Mm-hmm.
But expectations or the desire to say thank you isn't taught to me. And as a corollary, I gave something to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of money, because they gave me it. And I did expect a thank you. I thought I was being generous. So what you're telling me, which I thought is so important for me to hear, I shouldn't have had that expectation because it will ruin me.
Right.
And how I don't want to waste your time, but how on earth do you practice? It's so ingrained in us to say thank you.
It is.
And to expect that in return.
By keep doing it.
You said, watch your reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Be mindful of your reaction as you're having. Is that?
That's step one. Yeah. That's step one, is to watch what is happening in the moment, right? Because I'm not saying if someone does something nice to you to not say thank you, right? You can say thank you, be grateful for their generosity, but don't expect that they're going to reciprocate that generosity. The generosity. Don't expect them to say thank you back, or to say they're welcome to say thank you so much for helping me and giving me this money, you know. It's not the action of gratitude that's wrong, and it's the reaction to the gratitude that's wrong.
Reaction to the gratitude. His reaction.
His reaction. Correct.
You should not expect that.
You should not expect them to say thank you back or you're welcome. So if you're giving someone money, it's a lot of money, like you just said, and they didn't say thank you or whatnot, whose fault's that? Why do you feel bad? Right, but if you were to feel bad, right, why would, I'm sorry? Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. No. Mm-hmm. It's why we call it practice, first and foremost, right? Just because you know, now that I've said, watch your reactions, or not to expect anything in return, doesn't just automatically mean that's going to automatically happen in your brain the next time it happens. It's probably going to take a few other dozen times for it to really start clicking. Exactly. So now for next time, you know. Right. There are a lot of times where I even tell people, don't say thank you. I will literally tell them, I don't want any gratitude, I don't want any thanks, just here, and I walk away. Because if you're in a situation that you've put yourself in, right, it's one thing to not have expectations, right? But because it's something that because it's a societal thing, it's ingrained in our mind to say please and thank you, right? Which again, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's the reaction to the negligence of saying please and thank you from somebody else that hurts our feelings. Right. My why meditation.
So if they're not inclined to say thank you, that's the same as dealing with someone who's letting some negative stuff on their life. It doesn't happen.
Right. Right.
If you're breaking a social convention, yes. But the thing is, I can choose to always say thank you because I want want to turn that around. We want them to feel the way we're feeling. You can't expect that because you don't know what they're feeling.
I see. I understand. It's devastating of your understanding. When you're development, when I the first time I ever heard people be happy because of your circumstances, I was like, what is this? Like, of course, I'm going to be happier one my life. So it was such a foreign concept to me. And it was years ago before I did it. But as you practice and practice, you will understand it better and be able to apply it. So the first step is just having to break through the thought. Even just thinking, you know what? I'm not supposed to accept this. How does that work? You're right where you're supposed to be. And you'll practice in the middle. So just more simple. Teacher, can I ask you a question? This is simple.
Sure.
Is it okay to write on your text in books or not?
Is it okay to write in the books?
So, for example, I write on my iPad and on my notes.
Oh, yeah. That's fine. I do that all the time. You should see my personal copy of the Lotus Sutra is full of highlights and markings in the corner and notations. So you're fine. One thing I want to quickly mention, because we're way overdue, is Max. As I mentioned earlier, the one thing that I have truly feel like I've accomplished and have a superpower of is being unoffendable. And the way that I've learned to be unoffendable is simply asking yourself, is it true? So if someone is offending you or calling you names or whatever, just ask yourself, is it true? Yes or no? Because if it's true, then they know it and you know it. Why are you upset? If it's not true, you know it and they probably also know it. Why are you upset? Right? So if someone's calling you out or offending you and what they're saying is true, they're just stating the obvious. Why are you hurt about it? But if it's not true, it's not true. Why are you upset about it? So you just have to ask yourself, is it true? Yes or no? And by doing that constantly, all the time when you're in those situations, it makes it just so much easier to just like, whatever. It is what it is. Yes, sir.
I think the word condition is a lot of that. That's a good word because it reminds me of the story of light in the mirror. So confusion, our condition is stopping us from seeing the truth of what things really are. So we decondition ourselves in a way like light in the mirror, light in all other ways, and we then see what's really there. But it's hard. We're a very conditioned society.
Is it what? Aggravated? Aggravation is more anger. It's still a poison. Ignorance, greed, and anger. Anyway, let's transfer the mirror and then we'll go into chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we have accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Chris, what section are we on? 4? Sure. Okay. The incense in the censer now is burning, all the Dharma realm in every place, auspicious clouds appearing. As all Buddhas now show their perfect body, homage to the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva and great Bodhisattvas. In gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space, and may it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting our careful efforts, our wholehearted mindfulness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from fullness and realize our true home. Homage to the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma and sagely Sangha throughout the Dharma and the realm of empty space and 3 periods of time. Homage to the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, Maitreya, honored future Buddha, Manjushri, great wisdom, Bodhisattva, universal conduct, Bodhisattva, the Bodhisattvas and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Homage to Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss, Avalokiteshvara, great compassion, Bodhisattva, great strength, Bodhisattva, her sword, great vow, Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea like Bodhisattva. Please sit down. Please go to tab 4, page 68. Namo Lotus Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Lotus Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Lotus Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The Sutra of the Lotus of the Wonderful Law, Chapter 12, Devadatta. At the time the Buddha, Bodhisattvas, the heavenly, and the 4 kinds of believers, saying, I recall those departed kalpas of the past, when in order to seek the great law, though I was the ruler of a worldly kingdom, I was not greedy to satisfy the 5 desires. The bell crying in 4 quarters, who possesses the great law? If he will explain and preach it for me, I will be his slave and servant. At the time there was a seer named Ashita, who came in down to this great king. I have a subtle and wonderful law, rarely known in this world. If you will undertake religious practice, I will expound it for you. When the king heard the seer's words, his heart was filled with great joy. Immediately he accompanied the seer, providing him with whatever he needed, gathering firewood and appropriate times with respect and reverence, because he never flagged in body or mind for the sake of living beings. Everywhere he diligently sought the great law, taking no heed for himself or for gratification of the 5 desires. Therefore the ruler of a great kingdom, through diligent seeking, was able to acquire this law, eventually attained Buddhahood. As I will now explain to you, the Buddha said to the monks, the king at that time was I myself. The seer was the man who is now Devadatta, all because Devadatta was a good friend to me. I was able to become fully endowed with the 6 paramitas, with loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, with the 32 features, the 80 characteristics, the purple thin golden color, the 10 powers, the 4 kinds of fearlessness, the 4 methods, the 18 unshared properties, and the transcendental powers, and the power of the way, the fact that attained impartial and correct enlightenment can live on a broad scale is all due to Devadatta, who was a good friend at the time. Bodhisattva wisdom accumulated. Question Manjushri say, this sutra is very profound, subtle, and wonderful, a treasure among sutras, a rarity. And though are there perhaps any living beings who by earnestly and diligently practicing the sutra have been able to attain Buddhahood quickly? Manjushri replied, there is the daughter of the dragon king Sagara, who has just turned 8. Her wisdom has keen roots, and she is understanding the rude activities and deeds of living beings. She has mastered the Dharanis, has been able to accept and embrace all the storehouse of profound secrets preached by the Buddhas, has entered deep into meditate, thoroughly grasp the doctrines, and in the space of an instant conceive the desire for Bodhi and reach the level of no regression. Her eloquence knows no hindrance, and she thinks of living beings so they were her own children. She is fully endowed with blessings, and when it comes to conceiving in mind and expounding by mouth, she is subtle, wonderful, comprehensive, and great, kind, compassionate, benevolent, yielding. She is gentle and refined and well capable of attaining Bodhi, Bodhisattva, wisdom accumulated. Said when I observe Shakyamuni, thus come when I see that for immeasurable cult he carried out harsh and difficult practices, accumulating merit, piling up virtue, seeing the way of the Bodhisattva without ever resting. I observe that throughout the 1,000 million full world there is not a single spot tiny as a mustard seed where this Bodhisattva failed to sacrifice body and life for the sake of living beings. I cannot believe that this girl in the space of an instant could actually achieve correct enlightenment before his words had come to an. The Dragon King's daughter suddenly appeared before the Buddha, bowed her head in obeisance, and then retired to one side, reciting these verses of praise. He profoundly understands the signs of guilt and good fortune, and illuminate the 10 directions. Every pure Dharma body is endowed with the 32 features, the 80 characteristics adorn his Dharma body. Heavenly and human beings gaze up in awe, dragons and spirits all pay honor and respect among all living beings. None who do them in reverence, and having heard his teachings, I have attained Bodhi. The Buddha alone can bear witness to this. I unfold the doctrines of the great vehicle to rescue living beings from suffering. At the time Shariputra said to the dragon girl, you suppose that in this short time you have been able to attain the unsurpassed way, but this is difficult to is long and far stretching. Only after one has spent immeasurable kalpas pursuing austerities, accumulating these, practicing all kinds of paramitas, can one finally achieve success. How then could a woman like you be able to attain Buddhahood so quick? At the time the dragon girl had a precious jewel worth as much as the 1,000 million full world, which she presented to the Buddha. The Buddha immediately accepted. The dragon girl said to the Bodhisattva, wisdom accumulated, and to the Venerable One Shariputra, I presented the precious jewel, and the world honored one accepted. It was that not quickly done, they replied very quickly. The girl said, employ your supernatural power, watch me attain Buddhahood. It will be even quicker than that. At the time the members of the assembly all saw the dragon girl in the space of an instant change into a man and carry out all the practices of a Bodhisattva, immediately proceeding south, taking a seat on a jeweled lotus and attaining impartial and correct enlightenment with the 32 features and the 80 characteristics. He expounded the wonderful law for all living beings everywhere in the 10 directions. Chapter 13, Encouraging Devotion. The time the Bodhisattva and Mahasattva met a sinking along with the Bodhisattva and Mahasattva, great joy of preaching, and 20,000 Bodhisattva followers who were accompanying them all in the presence of the Buddha took this vow, saying, "We beg the world-honored one to have no further worry after the Buddha has entered extinction. We will honor, embrace, read, recite, and preach the sutra. Living beings in the evil age to come will have fewer and fewer good roots. Many will be overbearingly arrogant and greedy for offerings and other forms of gain, increasing the roots that are not good and moving farther away than ever from emancipation. Although it will be difficult to teach and convert them, we will summon up the power of great patience and will read and recite the sutra, embrace, preach, and copy it, offering it any kinds of alms and never begrudging our bodies or lives." At the time in the assembly, there were 500 arhats who received the prophets. They said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, we too will make a vow in lands other than this one. We will broadly preach the sutra." At the time, the Buddha's maternal aunt, the nun Mahapajapati, and the 6,000 nuns who accompanied her, some still learning, others with nothing more to learn, rose from their seats, pressed their palms together with a signal mind, and gazed up face of the leaving him for an instant. At the time, the world-honored one said to Gautami, "Why do you look at the dust come one in that perplexed manner? In your heart, are you perhaps worrying that I have failed to mention your name among those who have received the sea of the attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi?" But Gautami, I earlier made a general statement saying that all the voice hearers had received such a prophecy. Now, if you would like to know the prophecy for you, I will say that in ages to come, amid the law of 68,000 of millions of Buddha, you will be a great teacher of the law. In this manner, you will bit by bit fulfill the way of the Bodhisattva until you are able to become a Buddha with the name gladly seen by all living beings. Thus come one worthy of offerings of right and universal knowledge, perfect clarity and conduct, understanding the world, unexcelled, worthy trainer of people, teacher of heavenly and human beings, Buddha, world-honored one, Gautami, this gladly seen by all living beings, Buddha will confirm 6,000 Bodhisattvas to be passed from one to another, that they will attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. At the time, the mother of Rahula, the nun Yashodhara, thought to herself, "The world-honored one in his bestowal of prophecies has failed to mention my name alone." The Buddha said to Yashodhara, "In future ages, amid the thousands will practice the deeds of a Bodhisattva, will be a great teacher of the law, and will gradually fulfill the Buddha way. Then in a good land you will become a Buddha, named, endowed with 1,000, 10,000 glowing marks. Thus come one worthy of offerings, universal knowledge, perfect clarity and conduct, will con understanding the world, unexcelled, worthy trainer of people, teacher of heavenly and human beings, Buddha, world-honored one. The lifespan of this Buddha will be immeasurable as Samkhya Kalpas." At the time, the Bodhisattvas joined their voices together, saying, "We beg you not to worry after the Buddha has passed into extinction in an age of fear and minds with perverse wisdom and hearts that are fawning and crooked, who will suppose they have attained what they have not attained, being proud and boastful. For there will be forest-dwelling monks wearing clothing of patch rags and living in retirements, who will claim they are practicing the true way, despising and looking down on all humankind, greedy for profit and support. They will preach a law to white robe laymen and will be respected and revered by the world as though they were Arhatu. The six transcendental powers, these men with evil in their hearts, constantly thinking of worldly affairs, will borrow the name of forest-dwelling monks and take delight in proclaiming our faults, saying things like this: these monks are greedy for profit and therefore turns and fabricate their own scriptures to delude the poor of the world, because they hope to gain fame and renown. Thereby they make distinctions when preaching the sutra, because in the midst of the great assembly they constantly try famous will high ministers, Brahmins, and householders, as well as the other monks, slandering and speaking evil of us, saying these are men of perverted views who preach non-Buddhist doctrines. But because we revere the Buddha, we'll bear all these evils, though they treat us with contempt, saying you are all no doubt Buddhas. All such words of arrogance and contempt we will endure and accept in a muddied kalpa. In an evil age there will be many things to fear. Evil demons will take possession of, and through them curse, revile, and heap shame on us. But we reverently trusting in the Buddha will put on the armor of perseverance in order to preach the sutra. We will bear these difficult things. We care nothing for our bodies or lives, but are anxious for the unsurpassed way in ages to come. We will protect and uphold what the Buddha has entrusted to us. As the world honored one must know the evil monks of the muddied age really understand the Buddha's expedient means how to preach his law in accordance with what is appropriate. Will confront us with foul language and angry frowns, and we will be banished to a place far removed from towers and temples. All these various evils, because we keep in mind the Buddha's orders, we will endure. Settlements and towns, there are those who seek the law. We will go to wherever they are and preach the law entrusted to us by the Buddha. We will envoys of the world honored one, facing the assembly without fear. We will preach the law with skill, for we desire the Buddha to rest in tranquility in the presence of honored one and of the Buddhas who have gathered from the 10 directions. We proclaim this vow: the Buddha must know that our hearts. Chapter 14, Peaceful Practices. At the time Manjushri Dharma Prince Bodhisattva and Mahasattva said to the Buddha, world honored one, these bodhisattvas undertake something that is very difficult, because obey the Buddha they have taken a great vow that in the evil age hereafter they will guard, uphold, read, recite, and preach this Lotus Sutra. World honored one, in the evil age hereafter how should these bodhi now preaching the sutra? The Buddha said to Manjushri, if there are bodhisattvas who in the evil age hereafter wish to are the places they should enter and the persons they should closely associate with at all times: shun rulers and the princes of kingdoms, high ministers, heads of offices, those engage in hazardous amusements, non-Buddhists and Brahmins. One should not associate with persons of overbearing arrogance, or those who stubbornly adhere to the lesser catch fish or kill or do harm for profit. Those who be for a living or display women and sell their favors. All persons such as this one should never associate with those engaged in hazardous sports, wrestling, or other kinds of amusements. Men and women of lustful nature never associate. Any of these monks should never go alone into an enclosed place to preach the law to a woman. When you preach the law, let there be no jesting or laughter. When you enter a village to beg for food, take another monk with you. With a single mind, concentrate on the Buddha. These are what I call proper practices and associations. Be about these two, one can preach in a peaceful manner. One should not speak in terms of superior, medial, or inferior doctrines of the conditioned or the unconditioned, the real or the not real. Again, one should not make distinctions by saying this is a man, this is a woman. Do not try to apprehend phenomena, to understand or to see them. These are what I call the practices of the Bodhisattva. Phenomena are empty without being, without any constant abiding, without arising or extinction. This I call the position the wise person associates himself with from outside down. This come distinctions that phenomena exist, do not exist, are real, are not real, are not born. Place yourself in quiet surroundings, learn to still your mind, remain tranquil, unmoving, light Mount Sumeru. On all phenomena as having no existence, like empty space, as without firmness or hardness, not born, not emerging, not moving, not regressing, constantly abiding in a single form. This I call the place to draw near to. If I have entered extinction, there are monks who take up these practices and these associations, and when they preach the sutra, they will be free of quailing and timidity. If a bodhisattva will at times enter a quiet room, and with the correct attitude will view phenomena according to the doctrine, and then raising from will for the sake of the ruler, the princes, ministers, and people, the Brahmins and others, unfold, propagate, expound, and preach the sutra, then his mind will be tranquil, free of quailing and timidity. Manjushri, these I call the first set of rules for the Bodhisattva. By to enable him in later ages to preach the Lotus Sutra. Furthermore, Manjushri, after the thus come one has passed into extinction in the latter day of the law, the Bodhisattva should Allah in a tranquil manner on pure clean ground. He should spread his sitting mat, anoint his body with oil, wash away dust and impurities, put on a new clean robe, and make himself both inwardly and outwardly pure. See comfortably in the Dharma seat. He should preach the law in accordance with questions. If there are monks or nuns, lay women, lay believers, rulers and princes, officials, gentlemen, and common people, with a mild expression, he should preach for them the subtle and wonderful doctrines. If there are difficult questions, he should answer them in accordance with the doctrines, employing causes, additions, similes, and parables, to expound and make distinctions, and through these expedient means cause all listeners to aspire to enlightenment, to increase their benefits little by little. Enter the Buddha way. He should put aside all idea of laziness, all thoughts of negligence, stories, remove himself from cares and worries, and with a compassionate mind preach the law day and night. Constantly he should expound the teachings of the unsurpassed way, employing causes and conditions, immeasurable similes and parables, to instruct living beings and cause them all joyful clothing and bedding, food, drink, medicine. With regard to such things he should have no expectations, but with a single mind concentrate upon the reasons for preaching the law, desiring to complete the Buddha way and to cause those to do likewise. likewise that will bring great offering of peace after I have passed into extinction. If there are monks who are able to expound the Lotus Sutra of the wonderful law, their minds will be free of jealousy and anger, of all worry and hindrance. No one will be trouble them, curse or revile them. They will know no fear, no attacks by swords or staff, nor will they ever be banished, because they abide in patience. Wise persons will be good at cultivating their minds like this, and be able to abide in peace as I have described above. The blessings of such persons are beyond calculation or parable. Thousands and thousands, millions of kalpas would not suffice to describe them. Also Manjushi, if a bodhisattva or mahasattva in the latter age hereafter, when the law is about to perish, if you wish to preach the sutra, you must set aside jealousy, hatred, arrogance, a mind that is fawning, deceitful, false, and constantly practice honest and upright conduct. Do not look with contempt on others or bilious debates on the doctor, and do not cause others to have doubts or regrets by saying you will never become a Buddha. When a son of the Buddha preaches the law, he is full of forbearance, having pity and compassion on all, never giving way to a negligent or slothful mind. The great bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, out of pity for the multitude, carry out the way. One should strive to respect and revere them, saying, these are my great teachers. Regarding the Buddhas, the world-honored ones, learn to think of them as past fathers. Wipe out the mind of pride and arrogance, and preach the law without hindrance. Such is the third set of rules a wise person should guard and obey them. If with a single mind they observe these peaceful practices, they will be respected. Trouble multitudes at the time the world-honored one spoke in verse form, saying, constantly practice perseverance, have pity on all beings, and do your best to expound and preach the sutra praised by the Buddha in the latter age hereafter. Those who embrace the sutra should, with regard to persons in the household, persons who are not bodhisattvas, cultivate pity and compassion, saying, if they do not listen to and do not believe the sutra, they will be committing a great error. If I gain the Buddha way, I will employ expedient means and preach this law for them, causing them to abide in it. Suppose there is mirthful wheel-turning king, his soldiers having, he rewards them with various articles, elephants, horses, carriages, adornments for their person, fields and houses, settlements and towns, or give them clothing, kinds of precious objects, men and women, servants, wealth and goods, delight, bestowing all these. But if there is someone brave and stalwart who can carry out difficulties, the king will remove the bright jewel from his top knot and present it to the man. The thus come one is like this, he acts as king of the doctrines, possessing the great power of perseverance and the precious storehouse of wisdom. Great pity and compassion, he converts the age in accordance with the law. Undergo suffering and anxiety, seeking to gain emancipation, battling with the devils, and for the sake of these living beings, he preaches various doctrines, employing great expedient means and preaching these sutras, and knows that living beings have gained very last. For their sake he preaches this Lotus Sutra, like the king who unbinds his top knot and gives away his bright jewel. This sutra is to be honored as highest among all sutras. Constantly I guard and protect it, and do not recklessly reveal it. But now the time is right for me to preach it to you. There I have entered extinction. If someone seeks the Buddha way and hopes to be able in tranquility to expound the sutra, then he should associate himself closely with the 4 rules described. Anyone who reads the sutra at all times be free of worry and anxiety. Likewise, he will be without illness or pain, his expression fresh and bright. He will not be born in poverty or want and humble or ugly circumstances. senses, living beings who delight to see. Look up to him as a worthy or a sage. The young sons of heavenly beings will wait on him and serve him. Swords and staves will not touch, and poison will not. If people speak ill and revile him, their mouths will be closed and stopped up. He will stroll without. Of the sun, even in his dreams, he will see only wonderful things. He will see the dust come one seated in their lying seats, surrounded by multitudes of monks and preaching the law. And he will see dragon spirits, asuras, and others numerous as Ganges sands pressing their palms together. He will see himself there and will preach the law for them. The Buddhas, their body, trouble rays of light, things employing Brahma sounds to expound the doctrines for the four kinds of believers. The Buddha will preach the unsurpassed law, and among them pressing his palms together and praising the Buddha, he will hear the law in delight and will offer alms. He will obtain dharanis and proof of the wisdom without regression. And he will give him a prophecy that he will attain the highest, the correct enlightenment. You, good man, in an age to come will attain immeasurable wisdom, the great way of the Buddha. Your land will be adorned in pure comfort, and great with the four kinds of believers who press their palms together and listen to the law. Again, he will see himself midst of mountains and forests, practicing the good law, understanding the true entity of all. Millions of kalpas preaching the wonderful law, free of outflow, saving immeasurable living. Like smoke coming to an end when the lamp goes out. If in that evil age hereafter someone preaches this foremost law, that person will have things such as have been described above. Let's go to tab 9, page 171. Heart of the Prajna Paramita, the Bodhisattva Avalokita, while moving in the deep course of Prajna Paramita, shed light on the five skandhas and found them equally empty. After this penetration, he overcame ill being. Listen, Shariputra, form is emptiness, emptiness is emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. The same is true with feelings, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Listen, Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore, in emptiness there is no perception, nor mental formation, nor consciousness, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realms of elements, no interdependent origins, and no extinction of them, no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, no understanding, no attainment, because there is no attainment. The Bodhisattvas found in Prajna Paramita find no obstacles for their minds, having no obstacles they overcome fear, liberating themselves for it. all Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Anuttara Samyak Sambuddhi. Therefore one should know that perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequaled mantra, the destroyer of ill being, the incorruptible truth, the mantra Prajna Paramit. For be proclaimed Gate Gate Para Gate Para Sam Gate Bodhi Swaha Gate Gate Para Gate Para Sam Gate Bodhi Swaha Gate Gate Para Gate Para Sam Gate Bodhi Swaha. Sentient beings are limitless. I vow to liberate them. Afflictions are endless. I vow to eradicate them. Teachings are infinite. I vow to learn them. Buddhahood is supreme. I vow to attain. I vow that from now until the end of my life and in all future lives until I attain Anuttara Samyak Sambuddhi, that I will help all sentient beings, realms of existence. Namo thus come one worthy of offerings of proper and universal knowledge, perfect in understanding and conduct, skillful in leaving the world through liberation, perfect and complete understanding of all worldly dharma, past night taming hero, teacher of gods and people, Buddha, the world honored one. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Shetigarva Shetigarva Bodhisattva, Namo Shetigarva Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Treya Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo great pure sea-like Bodhisattvas, Namo great pure sea-like Bodhisattvas, Namo great pure sea-like Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva guarding Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva guarding Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva guarding Bodhisattvas. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding. Of love, I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love, taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice. Together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to help all people build fourfold communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Reciting the sutras, practicing the way of awareness gives rise to benefits without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings who give guidance and support along